Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. See, I sound like a YouTube pro already. It's Mr. Hayes here, early Tuesday morning, November 10th. We're going to talk today about our analysis. Now, first and foremost, if you have not completed your baby claims, context, and quote, make sure to get that done first before you even move on. But if you've been staying on track with the rest of the class and on track with your daily expectations, you're on to your analysis here on Tuesday. So let's talk a little bit about how you can compose the best possible analysis, which, as I've said many times before, is the most important part of your body paragraph. It's where you prove that your argument is true and really make sure the reader understands that. So you might be reminded of this kind of 8-question box here. This is back from September. I'm bringing it back again here in November because it is so important to organizing your information for your analysis. It's a great gateway to composing a really strong analysis portion of your CQA. These 8 questions are going to help guide you there. What you will do with these 8 questions is you want to aim for answering about 3 of them per body paragraph and answer them in about 2 sentences each for 6 sentences total. If your analysis is at the 6-sentence mark, you've done a pretty good job for a body paragraph, especially in a longer 5-paragraph CQA. So that's all of your goals, is to take 3 of these questions and answer them to the best of your ability in 2 sentences each. You can almost treat this like an interview. Like maybe I'm sitting in front of you at the table for an LDG and I'm asking you, okay, I heard you mention that quote. What does this moment mean? Like in number 1. And you have to do your best to answer that. Or, okay, I hear your quote there. You provided some good context. What can we now infer? You can almost treat it like you're answering an interview question. Instead, you're typing it in a couple of sentences each and then putting those interview questions and answers together into your analysis. I'm going to model exactly what that looks like right now. So let's go over to my planner. I'm going to scroll up here so you can see that I've kept pace with the rest of the class. I've got my baby claim about Junior's identity shift from beginning to end of the book. This is body paragraph or baby claim. This is really baby claim number 2. This is when he starts to shift. So I'm just going to change this. This is when he starts to shift, when his basketball coach gives him all that time at the hospital and tells him that he has as much commitment as anyone that he's ever met. And Junior feels very special about that night. I provided my context, that background I modeled yesterday in my video, and then the perfect quote, which is clear. It's complex. You can break it down in multiple ways, and it's very well written. So I've got all those parts done already. Now I need to do my analysis. So here's where that interview technique kind of comes in. I'm going to take 3 of these questions, and it can be any 3 that I'd like, and answer them in 2 sentences each. So I like starting with number 1 or number 2 to begin because it forces you to describe your interpretation of the quote. And that's a very important part of your analysis, especially to lead off your analysis, is what is this quote? What does this moment really mean to you as the reader? And start to elaborate on the significance of that quote and why you chose it. So I'm going to choose number 1. So I'll start with the sentence stem here. I'll change this to 2 as well. This moment means. I'm going to go with, I like number 6. There's some good complexity there, especially with making a text connection to another part of the book. So what does this remind me of from another part of the book? I could make that the sentence stem readers are reminded of. And then let's go all the way to the bottom to 8. What does it help us understand? I'll make that it is easy to understand. And you can kind of craft these sentence starters however you like. I like to mix it up from this all the time, so not sounding too repetitive. So instead of this connects to this helps me understand, just mixing it up I think helps with the flow of your paragraph too. That's a little trick of the trade. So I've got my 3 sentence stems here. Now I have to answer each of these in 2 sentences each, or at least 2 sentences each. You can always do more. All right, so I'm talking here about, as I go up, that night with the coach and why it's so important. I'm just going to remind myself of this quote here. The coach says, "The quality of a man's life is in direct proportion to his commitment to excellence. It's perfect for you. Never met anybody as committed as you." You can see here I've got 2 ellipses because I'm connecting multiple parts of the page that are not necessarily back to back. So coach and I sat awake all night. We told each other many stories, but I never repeat those stories. That night belonged to just me and my coach, properly punctuated at the end. So what does this moment mean? Why is it so important to Junior's identity shift from an unconfident, lackluster character who dwelled on his negatives to someone who feels empowered. But I could say this moment means that Junior finally has an adult figure in his life who he can depend on based on those coaches' remarks, even one who has validated his leap of faith in leaving Welpinit capitalized for Reardon. So when coach is saying that he's committed, it's not just because of basketball, it's because he left a place that he is familiar with, knowing he'd get a lot of backlash from his community and go to this new school. So he's talking about more than just basketball here. In fact, I'm going to reference that a little bit later. That's a good point I just thought of. This coach remarks, I'm really just explaining the quote here and my interpretation of it, that Junior is as committed as anyone he has ever met, complimenting him on his bravery in playing against Tribe, such a hostile environment. This is right after their first game when he gets the coin thrown at him and has to get stitched up by Eugene, but also his willingness to be framed as a traitor back home in exchange. What is he trading it for? In exchange for a superior education. Okay, so really my interpretation of the quote captured there in 2 sentences what this moment means. Now I get to readers are reminded of. This is where I want to make a connection to another part of the book. So I'm going to ask myself, did anything else similar happen that can prove my point? Well, maybe his parents and Eugene a little bit. I could definitely reference Eugene as another adult figure that helped boost his confidence. I could go with that. But the most powerful adult figure so far is the person who sent him off on his journey, which is Mr. P. And so when I'm making my text connection here to the coach's comment, adult figure, I want to think of another moment where an adult figure in the book prompted Junior to believe in himself. So readers are reminded of another adult figure who had faith in Junior earlier in the book, the old teacher, Mr. P. Just like Junior's coach, Mr. P saw something unique, and we could say extraordinary in him, reminding him he was too capable to waste his life amid the despair of the reservation. So here, I'm not just saying this reminds us of Mr. P and what he said to Junior on the back porch. I'm explaining in detail what that was. I'm reminding the reader of it was so they can say to themselves, oh yeah, that connection makes sense. I'm not leaving that too vague. Now I need a second sentence. While Mr. P set Junior off on his journey, his coach is even more important because he will be a support system for Junior over the next 4 years of his life. So yeah, Mr. P is vital because he sent them off on his journey, but the coach is even more important because he's going to be there with them along these. There are going to be 3 probably challenging years with some ups and downs at Reardon. Basketball might be a safe haven for him with the coach. So now is it easy to understand? This is where I kind of zoom out a little bit more and think of the bigger picture of the situation here. It's easy to understand how Junior's identity, I'm going back to the claim. I'm going back to the major claim here. If you're talking about single story, bring up single story at the end of your analysis. Why is it important to tracing his single story, her single story? Identity, bring that back. Motif, bring that back. You want to mention that larger point here at the end. You have to. It's fully shifting from someone who felt helpless and insignificant. See, going back to that identity shift, re-emphasizing it, to someone who believes he can accomplish the unthinkable. Yeah, that's good. What's this? What else? Bigger picture, I'm thinking theme, universal theme. Human beings are products of their environment. If someone, we'll talk about semicolons later in the unit. If someone is surrounded by hardworking and determined people, others will naturally rise to their level. This is back, kind of thinking about what Junior said when he got to Riordan and people started believing in him and how his environment dictated that. This is precisely what is happening with Junior. I'm comparing contrast to the Reds, unlike the alcoholism, despair, and violence of his old environment. His new one provides adult influences, such as his coach, who can push Junior to view himself in a completely new light. Awesome. So I'm proud of that. I like the way that I used 3 sentence stems. I pushed myself for at least 2 sentences each, if not more. I explained the quote. I made a text connection to another point in the book that was similar, but also reminded the reader that this point is even more vital because I'm moving further in the journey for Junior, or in the case of you're a memoir author, and then made a bigger picture theme. Why is it easy to understand? How this connects to an identity shift, relating it to a universal theme, kind of bringing it all together to make my larger point in the end and leave the reader thinking about something important that, especially this sentence here, could potentially connect to their own life. Okay, those are kind of the parts of your analysis, and feel free to use any of these questions that you think are important to that specific paragraph. For example, if you think of a really strong inference about what this will lead Michael or Trevor or Saru or Maya into the future, maybe you use sentence stem or question number 7 instead. Maybe you prefer the reader now has learned to use 3 instead. I don't care which of these you use, as long as you use 3 of them and aim for 2 sentences each, and you kind of change up your sentence stems so you're not sounding too much like a robot with this. I think you're on a great track. Please model your analysis after mine. You're going to be on a really great path if you do so. Okay. So what I would then do as my last step is take these 3 separate parts, combine them into one large paragraph along with my baby claim, context, and quote, and I'm done with one of my body paragraphs. Between now and Thursday, you're going to want to complete this entire planner. So it's going to take you some time. You're probably going to have to work on it for the hour that ELA is allotted tomorrow during your at-home time. I'm going to reserve that for just working on your planner. So please make sure you get that done. Make sure you're staying on track. And once again, if you do the hard work now, you'll be able to just copy and paste from the planner to your document later and feel really good about yourself. Any questions, give me a holler. We'll be around all day, either on Zoom or in person. Thanks, everybody.